July 18th. Okay, July 18th. We've had quite the crazy past couple of weeks. We haven't had a Chips and Salt show in quite a while. We've had some family emergencies going on. I'm not a liability to say what's going on, but we pray for Alice and her family. She's been going through some pretty intense stuff, and we love her to death. We wish her the best, her and her husband and her family. But for the time being, so fortunate as to have Mr. Juan Garcia, the former founder, and he's the founder and the former president of the CCIA, the Coalition of Conservatives in Action. Juan's an amazing guy. I hit him up to come join the show, and he said, "Sure, I'll join the show with you." How you doing, Mr. Juan?
Hey, I'm doing well, and thanks for the invite. Actually, we founded it. There was a bunch of us that founded CCIA.
Right. That's right.
I just got voted as the first chairman.
Ah, okay. So you guys founded it, and then they kind of did like an election from there.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's about as much integrity as you can have for an organization right there. That's awesome. So I definitely want to talk to you about that. Because I think it's important, everything that you've done for the community for all these years now. But before we dive into that, I'd like to kind of get a little bio on you, sir, because I know a little bit about you. I know you're a retired Marine. Yes. If you can go ahead and let the audience know, about your Marine service, and then I know you did some private contracting services, and then kind of walk us into how that led into the Coalition of Conservatives in Action, and then talk about what your goals were with that and what your workings and doings with the community. Because to me, it was extraordinarily important. It helped fuel my political career. It helped me get involved and understand politics at a super high level because of all the tremendous work that you guys did. So please, Mr. Juan, go ahead.
So I'm originally from South Texas. Poor as poor can be.
Dirt poor.
Dirt poor. We immigrated. My parents and I immigrated from Mexico here in 1960. I was 5 years old.
Wow.
So we are legal immigrants.
Okay.
I dropped out of high school at 17. I said, I've had enough of this. Joined the Marine Corps 25 years later.
Damn.
I made it to the top rank, Master Gunnery Sergeant.
Damn.
When I retired, I joined Raytheon, which is a contractor, defense contractor, makes Patriot missiles, Tomahawks, and so forth.
Damn.
And I spent about 22 years there. Ended up as site manager in Taiwan, Saudi, did some program management, and finally in 2018, I returned from Taiwan, 2018, and I decided I was going to do nothing. Okay. After the assignment in Taiwan was very stressful. We were up on a mountain, we had typhoons, mudslides, so other nice stuff that you can enjoy. And then I ran into Isabella.
Oh, Isabella Solis for State Rep District 37.
Yes, the one candidate there. And somehow or another, she talked me into joining HCOC, which was the Hispanic Coalition of Conservatives, if I recall correctly.
Okay. Yeah. That's where I was kind of confused on that. That's why I wanted to ask you about this stuff, because I know there was a bridge between that initial meeting with Isabella and an organization that she had been working with, and then insert you. But real quick, just for the audience, so you were Master Gunnery, that's E9, right?
E9,
So you got to E9. That's the number one top spot for the enlisted corps in all of enlisted military. That's the top 1%, less than 1% of all of Americans even qualify for that, right? Or even get to that rank.
It was a challenge, but it's good.
and then real quick with Taiwan. So what the heck were you doing in Taiwan? Are you at liberty to say?
No, of course. So I transitioned as I went up in grade and roles and assignments into Raytheon, which was a very good company to work for. I get assigned to 3 site management positions. Basically, you go into this country and there's a Raytheon contingency there.
Okay.
I started out in Israel. I spent time there.
Wow, really?
I spent about 6 months there. Then I transitioned into Saudi, which I spent about 18 months with Patriot. And what Raytheon does, and at least when I was there, is they would overhaul, rebuild the Patriot system.
Oh, wow.
Okay, you call them SICO, right? And we would be responsible for the checkout after it was overhauled, rebuilt. And we passed them back to the Saudis. So I worked with a couple of the generals there in Saudi.
Wow.
And then my last assignment was Taiwan, a site manager again. Raytheon had actually the Taiwanese Air Force had a early surveillance radar that monitored not so friendly countries. We were on top of the radar itself was about 12, 15,000 feet. And we lived about 8,000 feet.
Damn, that's badass. It was Taiwan?
It was a jungle. It was a jungle.
Sounds beautiful, though.
It was gorgeous. But The roads going up there, it was probably wide enough for 1.5 cars width, with a drop off of 6, 8, 10, 12,000 feet.
Damn. Well, so it's like one of those clips you see on social media where these guys are like barely getting up the mountain like that.
Yes. And of course, you could be driving, and if there was a lot of rain, you could see mudslides coming down.
Wow.
We had one individual that had a boulder. Thank God the boulder, when it landed in front of the vehicle. I mean, so if not, he would have been crushed.
And so for Taiwan, I know there's a lot of chip manufacturing there. Is that kind of a reason why you guys were there, because of the chip?
No. Well, I had nothing to do with that. Keep in mind that you're talking about Taipei and some of the more countries. Okay. We were in the middle of nowhere. I mean, like we were remote, literally remote. In a mountaintop. I mean, the closest to civilization was probably about 100 kilometers, give or take.
What's that in miles, Juan? You got to help us out here in America.
60 miles.
Dang, really?
But the problem was not the distance. It was that you couldn't drive down any faster than maybe 10, 15 miles an hour. Okay.
Wow.
I mean,
it's just super slow.
So you didn't come down the mountain very often. That's what I'm trying to say.
So was it deemed like a remote assignment?
It was exactly a remote assignment. We had a little village that Raytheon had set up for us. We lived in that compound there. We had our gas. We had to bring our food, and we had Taiwanese that would support us, which were excellent, great people.
Wow. So I've heard good things about the Taiwanese people.
Yeah. So basically, it was a home away from home.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I want to get into the local political stuff, but I am former military. I am former active. I just did 4 years in the Air Force, and I did do some NATO stuff. I did some joint task force stuff with NATO in Italy, and I'm somewhat familiar with that type of military service. I find it very fascinating. The joint operations, stuff like that, and the local culture and stuff. So I think that speaks to your open mind, your grounded, down to earth mentality, because you're one of the most chill guys I've ever met. And from being an E9 Marine, it's kind of a weird thing to say, but it's chill. Juan here, guys, is cool as a cucumber, about as cool as it gets. He handles pressure extremely well. And so let's get back into the HELC. So Isabella approaches you. This is back in like 2018 when you decided to do nothing.
About 2018, 2019, somewhere, maybe 20. I don't remember exactly when, but we were talking, and she's bound and determined that she wants me to join HELC. I'm like, I don't want any part of this. I don't know anything about this. I had just got back to Las Cruces. I didn't know anything about the council. I knew nothing.
Wow.
Absolutely nothing, political speaking. Bless her heart, she convinced me. Mm-hmm. I started out as the secretary in HCOC, which was part of the GOP at the time. Okay, and
that's right.
When we first started, and a lot of the same folks that are still around, Bierman, Rick Renaud, a couple of the others. I mean, we all started together there, but we had some issues with the party and dealing with finances.
Yeah, big issues.
And we decided to just go on our own. And what we did is when we formed CCIA, it was a community advocacy organization, which was nonpartisan, okay? And it was not for money. We were just, an advocacy organization that was focused on local political issues. That was our primary area.
Right. No, and I remember when I had that's about the year I started getting involved in politics. Well, I started getting involved about 2017, late 2016, early 2017. I started to support Yvette Herrell because, I just got into it and I saw her commercials and stuff, and she started to run for Congress. So I was like, this is the woman that I want to get across or hang around with. And then I started to go to the local GOP meetings. And back then, guys, the Doñana County Republican Party, DARP, was phenomenally stacked. I mean, the first meeting I went to was it was like 100 people, felt like. It was at the Picacho Hills Golf Course, huge meting, and there was so many people. It was beautiful, honestly. It was. I
remember.
There was so much togetherness. There was so many, you didn't even feel like it was in Las Cruces on. It felt like you were kind of in Texas. And after that, at that particular meeting, there was some pretty shady stuff that went down. I think you remember that one, right?
Absolutely.
And so let's talk about that. Hey, in the spirit of transparency and the Great Awakening, and local politics. Let's get into that, because that's where I think all of our political careers took a sharp turn, right?
Yeah, and I think what happens, Zeke, is that thanks to being in the Marine Corps for that amount of time, I look at things differently than a lot of people.
I bet.
do. I mean, there was blacks, there was browns, there was whites, there was yellows, there was reds, there was whatever.
Yep.
And we all worked together. We all had a common goal.
That's right.
We didn't, if you were doing your job and you were doing your job well, you got promoted. If you didn't, you got booted out or you didn't get promoted.
Wasn't
Very
it
simple.
the pinnacle of Martin Luther King? Like we judge you off the contents of your character. It was kind of funny because it was kind of like oxymoronic, kind of because we would take jabs at each other with racial like epitaphs and like jokes and stuff. But at the end of the day, we worked so hard together, and we were all so comfortable no matter where you were from. It was kind of like a brotherly love, kind of making jokes at each other. But at the end of the day, it was how you performed and how well you did your job, and that's how good you got treated in your unit.
Well, and the other thing too is it didn't matter what your background was.
Right.
Like I said earlier, I mean, I was Hispanic and poor and blah, blah and so forth and so on, and that still did not stop me from being promoted and respected and dealing with officers and senior enlisted and so forth.
Right.
So that, and actually interesting you say that, because when I retired in 1996, I had spent more than half of my life in the Marine Corps. Okay. Because when I came in, I was
in 96, you retired?
I retired in 96. I came in at 17, okay, and I was 41 when I retired.
Dang.
So
you look great, by the way.
well, thank you. All my life, especially when I retired, I mean, I knew nothing but the Marine Corps.
Wow.
It was a totally different life.
E9 Marine Corps even.
and I loved it. It was one of the best times in my life.
I bet you did, yeah.
So when after I met Isabella and the party and everything else, I noticed the party, and bless their hearts, everybody's got their own agenda.
Right.
They were not focused on local issues.
No.
And one of my pet peeves was crime. I started seeing broken windows, people getting mugged, so forth and so on, las cruces.
That's right.
And I kept asking the question, where's the party? So the party's worried about electing people, or trying to, right? But one of the things that I learned, and I copied, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, the left, the progressives are extremely good at advocacy.
That's
They
right.
do that very, very well. And we, on the other side, don't.
That's right.
And I started seeing this, and that's how CCIA started shaping. So a lot of what CCIA turned out to be and the way we did things was actually using, the model that the left uses,
Mimicking it.
which is very effective.
It is.
But we just don't use it,
Right.
which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and the left side, it's so even bizarre. It's more bizarre to me even so these days because we've already seen like the manifestation of their ideology in states like California, other horrible blue states like Colorado, New Mexico. I mean, we've seen the maximum expression of it and how bad it is. I mean, you can literally drive over the imaginary line from Las Cruces, New Mexico to El Paso, Texas, and just feel, not only see, but feel the difference of real policies relative to what you would, what I would deem communist policies here in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and New Mexico in general, California in general. So it's like, it's like you people are still advocating for these Democrat, lefty, commie policies and these transgender for everyone, how President Trump calls it. I love it when he says it. I think it's hilarious. In California, it's like, well, then go move to California. Go move to LA. Go hang out in Skid Row.
So, yes. But see, here's the difference. And I agree with what you're saying, is that when you are in a solid blue environment, which we are,
That's right.
the board, the council, and the commission, solid blue. We have no conservative representatives. We have in the council maybe, some kind of middle of the line
Purplish or
type.
whatever,
Right.
yeah.
So when you do that, what is your alternative? You can't wait every 2 years or every 4 years to elect a new representative, a new councilor. Because what happens in those 4 years? This is where advocacy comes into play. Because advocacy is pushing, engaging with, convincing, whatever you want to do, the current elected officials.
That's right.
Okay, so you have an option, and this is one of the very troubling things that I've seen is that the party goes in a cycle like a square wave, right? A election time comes around, you have candidates, they run, they lose, they win, and that's back another 4 years, right? But the clock continues. Nothing stops during those 4 years, right?
Right.
And this is where we, CCIA, came into play. And we lobbied for a lot at the school board. I mean, we were really pushed a lot. We pushed a lot in the city council and the commission.
Yeah, and so, when you're talking about elected officials and people who are in there are left, and 4 years is a long time. I never heard of it that way, honestly. Advocacy is really just kind of pushing the people who are already elected, and trying to sway them in certain ways with discourse and you guys went up. I went up to city council with you too. You've been big on that ever since I've ever met you. You've been someone that goes up to city council and you tell them how it is, and they don't like you for that, which is good. That's why I like you. If they don't like you, I like you.
Well, the thing is that we have a great opportunity here is that you have public comments. I know you get 3 minutes, but when you get 3, 5, 6, 10, 20 people that can actually go out there and speak somewhat intelligently. I'm not talking about babbling. At this last commission, you had the circus. I mean, there were self-identified clowns there. Okay,
the Project Jupiter folk.
For the Project Jupiter folks. Okay, I mean, I'm not talking about that craziness. I'm talking about a serious topic with serious comments that you can explain in those 3 minutes. And not only are you talking to the council, commission, whoever, but you got a huge audience, not just behind you,
Cameras,
but the cameras. You're right. And then one of the things that we do is we clip those videos that are pertinent, and then we put them on our social media so we can help promote. That's advocacy.
Yeah, and to just clarify, Juan, I say that they don't like him, whatever. And the reason why they don't like him is because he's so damn professional and he's so damn calm. He's not hooting and hollering. He's making cogent points, reasonable points, and it's the truth. And there's nothing more that they hate than the truth,
Well, if you prepare your comments semi-intelligent, you can put a little digs in there, and you don't come across as some crazed individual. They have to listen to you, and they can't. What are they going to challenge? I mean, what are they going to say?
No, they can't. And that's the thing is you're so distinguished too, because guys, go back to your military service again. To make E9 in any kind of enlisted service, particularly in the Marines, that's extremely difficult. That means this guy right here, Juan, is just one of the most rare Americans out there. It's really hard to get to that rank. I mean, they scrutinize you physically, mentally. They test you. They don't just promote people to that position. So we're very fortunate to have someone like you come back here to Las Cruces and share that wonderful experience that you accrued and acquired serving this country. And on that note, real quick, I want to make another point. There's a reason why the veterans are so cherished in American culture and American folklore, because when we were doing the American Revolutionary War, it was the veterans of other foreign wars like the French War and other wars that came and taught our American forces and used that experience to get us to win the Revolutionary War. So the veterans in this country are always are endeared so much because particularly for guys like Juan, their experience that they acquired during their service came and actually shaped America. So I had to harden on that point because it means a lot to me, not only as being a veteran, but as someone who understands the history of this country. Right. And so they see a guy like you getting up there, you're calm, cool, and collected. You're hitting them hard with truth, and you do a little bit of digs, but it's very tasteful. It's nothing. You're not arrogant or disrespectful or anything. And it's just at the end of the day, because I was involved with the CCIA as well too, and we did a lot of work, man. When I was working with you guys, it was like we're at the school board meetings, county commission meetings, city council meetings, and you get to learn. I don't think it was a point that Elon Musk's father, I heard him on a podcast recently, and it resonated with me because he's dealing with a lot of the racism against white people in South Africa, right? Because he's still in South Africa. And it's like, I gotta get out of the mentality of thinking that these are commies, these are Marxists, it's like, no, these are really just opportunists, because a lot of these people don't even really understand or care about the ideology that they're getting behind. They're just looking at it as a way to come up in life, in however way but I just don't even think that a lot of them even understand the true philosophical insights of the ideology. They're just opportunists.
And I think that word is correct. And you see that in the council.
Yes.
We have opportunists in the council.
That's right.
We have councilors there that are it's all about me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, look at Gabe Vasquez, Councilor Bluff and so forth.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, those, and you know what? At the end of the day, there's nothing really wrong with that, except that when it becomes about me instead of the community that you represent, you're supposed to represent, now you have a problem.
Yeah.
And what these folks do in a lot of cases, it's what about benefits them individually, and they forget about the people. I don't know if you remember when we first started with CCIA, I think it was around 22, 21 somewhere, and we used to go to the council day, every time. And it was always the same subject, crime.
Yeah.
So I hear this hypocrisy from the council. Oh, we care about women, we care about Hispanics and all sort of good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, guess who was getting hit the hardest? was Hispanic women that
Females.
had small businesses.
That's
right.
right. That's right.
And we used to bring him into the council, and they would just, the council would just sit there, yes, 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 and that would be it. And that's what really started shaping my disgust for some of the politicians. And I use that term political hypocrisy quite a bit. And I do speak about the council. When I see you pretending to be A, but in reality you're B, or your behavior is
Like
different.
full frontal gaslighting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that just bugs the daylights out of me.
No, and it should. We these people are in charge. There's a lot of responsibility, and people talk about how it's not a big deal. President Trump should be focusing on other stuff besides stolen elections. It's like, dude, without fair how much responsibility these guys get, and we're talking on a micro level. It's a tremendous amount of responsibility, millions of dollars, kids, people's lives, crime, all that stuff. On a macro level, these people are getting access to the damn nuclear codes, bro.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? These elections are, to hear people downplay the significance of having fair elections really irks me, and it really kind of speaks to the IQ levels of the modern American these days. I mean, it's America that we got President Trump in there. And I know a lot of people don't agree. Even the Republicans right now, a lot of them turning on President Trump. And I have a lot of criticisms for him too. But at the end of the day, he still did champion 80 million votes. And he did represent a good chunk of this country that felt that we wanted common sense policies in the White House.
Well, and I'm glad you said that because, and I've spoken at the council about this, we have the folks running around the streets with no king sign, no king sign. I'm like, really? What a delusional comment to make. I'm serious.
No, for real.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said it. 80 million Americans voted for the president. Like him or not, that's beside the point.
Yep.
And here we are. He is not a king. Okay.
No.
But people have this craziness in their minds. I don't know. I don't know why they hate the president so much. And I do understand why they hate him sometimes, because he is changing a lot of the status quo that was here for the last X amount of years.
Big time, yeah. And change is always difficult for most people. Psychologically, especially if evolutionarily, we had our hunter-gathering group, and we stayed within that group. I think it was like no more than 5. We weren't really designed to be around more than 500 people. And so, change, our lifestyles were very consistent as we evolved as human beings. You hunt, you gather, you raise your kids, you die,
Right.
And so I think a lot of people have a hard time with change. And then it's got to be the education one, because I keep running into people, especially like younger females. Younger females are, and the statistics are there, they are super far left, and they're getting even further left. And I run into them a lot just because of my work and my career and just dealing with social media. I run into a lot of younger girls that just got to college or still in college. And I pick their brain. And I literally have argument with women these days. And it's always my main question. So do you actually believe that women are physically stronger than men? And I'll get them, and they will argue with me about that. They will absolutely, I'm not even getting personal about anything. This is just basic biology, okay? And they will argue with me about women are just as strong or stronger physically than men. This is a type of feminist ideology doctrine that has been embedded, and that's just a seed. There's so many other. They hate America. They hate white people. The Americans are racist. They committed genocide against the Native Americans, and they're ashamed to be. They're teaching these kids to be ashamed of America, and it's just
that's pathetic.
It's not how I grew up.
Okay, that's extremely pathetic, because when we came here being the U.S., we came to assimilate in this country.
That's right.
And I love my native country. There's nothing wrong with that. But why would my parents come here to bring what we were supposed to be leaving behind? It makes no sense.
Right.
And a lot of people just can't seem to understand that.
Yeah. And you are just, we can go on and on about your back. I don't think you get enough credit for it, but yeah, you're literally a legalized American, a legal immigrant. Joined the military at 17, you grew up dirt poor, turned yourself into this amazing Marine, and now you're a community advocate. I mean, you are the pinnacle of what their American dream is. And so why wouldn't people want to take you seriously? Why wouldn't the city council or these Democrats look at you and your life and your career and say, hey, this guy has good intentions. This guy is not here to take money. He's not greedy. No. He's not thirsty for power. He just wants freaking crime to go down in the community.
What's wrong with that, right?
There's nothing wrong with it.
And what is wrong with trying to do what is right? Okay. And again, this was pounded into my head in the Marine Corps. Merit. when we first started out, my parents started out, I mean, our house was probably a little bit, I don't even know if it was as big as this room, okay, for 4 of us. And, but my dad worked his rear off, never accepted food stamps back in the day.
That's cool, man.
A couple of jobs. So I don't expect everybody to be like my dad. But what I'm trying to say is that, you know, we've gotten to the point where we expect the government to do this, to you know, for the handouts. And at the same time, this is why I like some of Trump's ideas, some of his plans, is that, like with SNAP, formerly food stamps, right?
Right.
You either work, go to school, or volunteer.
Yeah.
It's as simple that.
That's
and
right.
if you need a supplement, you get the supplement. But for you to sit home and just collect is not the way to do business.
And there's so many people that are like that, that you know, these illegal immigrants, they come over here and they get all the bells and whistles, down payment on the mortgages, you know, they get SNAP, you know, Medicaid, all this stuff. And I know so many Americans that work hard, that earn a decent living, and they got no insurance and they got to pay out of pocket, and it's so brutal. They still get poor care. And it's just, there's so many unfair things happening in this country, you know, and let's get in. Now we're getting into some geopolitical stuff, because what we'll do is we'll finish on this note here with CCIA. Like I respect that organization tremendously. And I think, you know, as we were kind of getting our word out about the message and, you know, supporting you guys, people like Albuquerque and Rio Rancho were like, man, we need something like that up here. And they didn't do a very good job. Nothing, you know, hey, thank you for trying, but it's very difficult to get that type of organization, to get that type of advocacy going on a consistent basis. And you guys did it for years. You're still doing it. And I just want to give you guys credit for that. And I thank you for all your sacrifice and just doing what you did for the community here in New Mexico and Las Cruces, man, because I think it inspired me significantly. And I can tell you from what I learned and did with you, it inspired me. And I have met and spread that energy across all over New Mexico. And so I can't take full credit for that. I give a lot of that credit to Mr. Juan here and his group there, HCOC and CCIA. So I look forward to supporting you guys in the future. I know you guys are taking a little bit of a break right now until the elections.
Right.
But you know, it just, thank you, man. Thank you for all that.
I appreciate it. And thank you for your help too. I mean, you were part of the team.
Sure. No, and I'll continue supporting you guys as much as I can. But so let's get into some geopolitics, because you get these, you know, local community advocates, and we did as much as we could there. And it frustrates me because here we have a state that's blue, and we know that recently President Trump has released some files, you know, that the CIA in China was basically working against us, you know, and stealing the elections. And it's just kind of the beginning. It's a big info drop. And we've experienced crooked elections here for quite some time. And I don't know how, you know, outspoken you want to get about it, Juan. I mean, I know I'm more outspoken about the elections than most people, but I haven't seen, since I got involved, my introduction into politics was supporting Yvette Herrell in 2018. They stopped the count at like 8 or 9. She's winning. They stopped the count. I'm sitting next to her. I'm at her election party. They stopped the count. We're freaking out because it was a tough election, tough race. We wake up in the morning and all of a sudden, like 2,000 ballots, 4,000 ballots. Every single one of them was a mail-in ballot that came in after midnight. All of them were Democrat. None of them were time or date stamped. Now, statistically alone, and I have the evidence for that. I'll post it in the description. You guys can see the report. There was an audit that was done. What are the odds statistically that every single ballot that comes in after midnight, okay, is a Democrat one, and even further, that they're not date or time stamped? What does that tell you? And so we have this stuff. This is known in Doña Ana County. Everybody knows around the state, especially in the Republican circle. Hey, man, Doña Ana is tough. Man, that's a tough county. And so that being said, Dr. Askin, who was presiding over that election, I think that was her first cycle that she got in there.
I think so, yeah.
And she hasn't counted the ballots on election day for every major election since then. So every major election since she's been in charge has not been counted on that. It took her 2 days, 3 days, up to a week to count the ballots in Doña Ana County. Meanwhile, we get Florida, who has millions and millions. We have India, we have Germany. All these countries can count millions and millions of ballots in a day, in less than a day.
Right.
But good old Doña Ana County, with 100,000 people or so, can't count them in a day. I mean, that stuff right there just blows my mind that people accept that.
So, okay. And as a matter of fact, I was with Clerk Askin on a radio interview with Peter Goodman a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow, really recently even.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Recently. And this is just my feelings, right? Do I think that Clerk Askin sits somewhere in the basement flipping votes and stuff? No, I don't think so.
Well, that's not how it works.
However, and I said this, and I think I got my words out before I was changed subjects, is that It's either incompetence or something, okay? Because like you said, that it takes a small county like this, and yes, in the big scheme, it's pretty small.
It is.
For it to take that. And like I mentioned to the clerk, I says the perception. I says, even if you're not doing anything illegal, the perception, just like you described, and I remember that all of a sudden you get X amount of thousands of mail-in ballots and they all happen to be, it just creates a very bad, image in people's minds. And now that you mentioned that, clerk asked him 4 years ago, give or take, and I asked her to come and speak to CCIA about the election.
Right.
And I said, can you come and tell us, okay, this is how it goes, this is how. She refused because she doesn't talk to people like us.
Wow.
Okay? And I don't know if you remember that. So do I believe that somebody's sitting there flipping, the machines? I don't believe that. I can't see how that can happen. But there's a lot of questions in my mind, particularly with mail-in ballots, that suddenly, they know the elections are coming, right? Once a year. They can prepare. They can do overtime. And I told the clerk that. I said, you can buy an extra printer, whatever the case is. You're not being prepared. As a matter of fact, I found public comments that I made about the subject on that at the commission. I says, how can you be unprepared when you know it's coming? Okay.
And the Marines know about preparedness, all right? That's what they know about.
So there's no excuse for her to say, well, our people were tired. Hey, you can get temporary hires, whatever the case is, so that they're trained on how to count ballots, whatever the training is required, so that you have a smooth transition, right?
Yeah, and basic procedure and protocol, preparedness. It's like, come on, get that ready. And so, aside
basic, Zeke.
Basic. So, I mean, there are a couple of things with that. What people don't know, and I'm going to do some more investigating, is like, from what I understand, it's really the Dominion consultant representative that comes down here and runs the machines and all that. So she can kind of like, plausible liability, put it on them. And she kind of just enables the whole thing. That's the way I understand the way most elections are ran in the country, around the country. So she can easily just put it off on them, but she probably doesn't even want to disclose that they're that involved, because to what I understand, Dominion is very involved. For every election, that Dominion that we do a contract, whatever state or county does a contract with Dominion, whatever machine, they have a consultant representative that comes down and actually runs the entire election. The county clerk just sits back and lets them do their thing. That's the way I understand it. I'll verify that. And that's one thing that I want to do a little more research on and figure that out. But number two, and this is like the freaking glowing thing in the room, the glowing elephant in the room, is like the damn voter rolls, man. The Secretary of State will not hand them over to President Trump's administration.
And to me, that's very shady that she refuses to do that. And again, going back to just the way I see things, if you don't have anything to hide, okay, and as critical as those roles are, why are they not being reviewed? Why are they not allowed to be looked at?
Should be easy peasy, bro. Here's the voter rolls. They're all good. We purged all the dead people, all the people that moved. They're all gone. Here you go, President Trump.
That's it. And you know what? If she was to do that, I'm talking about Maggie Oliver, the SOS. If she was to do that, I think that would really dispel so many, truths and false truths and, whatever, and just put it out there and get this over with. Instead, every year it keeps the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I love talking about election integrity, guys. Just to be honest with you, I love this topic. It's my favorite political topic because it's so glaringly obvious that there's something awry. People don't. Why would common sense or reasonable people vote for these absolutely horrendous policies? Worst education in the country. We're the abortion capital of the world now. Who wants these? A terrible crime here. Nobody's moving here. Nobody's moving here. We got more doctors leaving in this state than that are coming. It's the only state in the country that has it. And I can go on and on about how horrible this place is. But this topic I like very much so. And so let's look at this, reasonably here. Without fair elections, this state has really just been, gone down the shitter.
Well, okay, so that could be part of it. And I think that could be fairly easily remedied if, in fact, the voter rolls were scrubbed and it was, we don't want to know your address. We don't want to go just your PII or anything else. but just the fact that you are a legitimate citizen.
Yeah.
Okay, that should be it. But let's talk about, you said something else. Why do people keep voting for the same party decade after decade, knowing how screwed up New Mexico is?
Yeah, man.
And you know what? I wrestle with that question because I see it. You're taking it to the state level, that's fine, which applies to all of us. Bring it back down to the city level.
Yeah.
Okay, how many times have I heard the council sucks? We got a horrible council. Did you vote? What have you done to do? So when I asked the question, well, I couldn't make it, whatever. So we, the people, are the ones that are causing this problem, because we, the people, if we would just think about what we're doing and go vote, right, we could potentially get some of these people out of office. Look at some of the turnouts that we've had here locally. Virtually nothing, okay? We could have easily put Julia, I'm picking on Julia, she's candidate for New Mexico District 36.
36.
She could have been easily a representative at the school board.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is because of and it sucks. It's like a double-edged sword, We can admit as conservatives, as Republicans, that there are issues with the elections. And I think it creates a certain type of apathy, and people just don't want to engage anymore, which is very cowardly. And I don't agree with that at all. I think if you understand that there's corruption, that is your duty as an American, and especially if you're someone of God, with righteous indignation, you should be pursuing the correcting of corruption and righteousness. You should be championing that. You should be getting involved with your community, and it's your civil duty. But people do the opposite. They see the corruption and they run from it.
You used the word that I believe 100% in, apathy. Yeah. When people say, why are we in the mess we're in? Apathy.
Yeah.
We can change things, okay? And it can be done. I'll give you another example, now that you got me started on this.
Yeah, let's do it.
When the National Day of Prayer, when the invocation was being removed from the commission. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you remember that.
A year ago, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, about 2 years. Yeah, about 2 years ago. Yeah. And I asked for help. And I said, hey, we need to get people together to go in there, people of faith, whatever the case may be. Nada. Zero. The atheist groups, the agnostics, they had about 20, 25 people in there with their nice blue shirts talking about why doing away with invocation was the right thing to do. Apathy.
Yeah. And I think, we can get into some bigger stuff. I think it's like, they defunded USAID, and there's a big correlation that came about that's been a kind of a hard topic on social media. It's like, as soon as they defunded USAID, rap is no longer at the top of the charts anymore on the music charts. Because they've come and find that the CIA was funding a lot of these artists to push certain kind of cultural agendas. And so you talk about funding, it feels like these people were getting paid.
The other thing too, now that you mentioned USAID, and I see a lot of that, is that why is this country, we have 195 countries in the world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably, I'm guessing, off the top of my head, 30 countries that are probably not too bad doing. Yeah, we have England, Germany, blah, 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 whatever other countries.
Right? England's kind of
and one of my pet peeves with USAID is, why is the U.S. responsible to provide this funding? Okay. Yeah. And particularly in areas like you're talking about, right? And I don't have the list off the top of my head. Some of the areas that were being funded made no sense. Money was just being thrown in there.
And so much money, too.
Yes. We're not talking about thousands.
No.
We're talking about millions.
And billions.
As a matter of fact, I was doing some research the other day, and I think it was in the billions since this thing. Because this USAID was founded by Kennedy, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah,
and
that makes sense.
It's had tons and tons of money put into it.
Well, so that being said, you go to these protests, or you go to this county commission. And I remember that when they got rid of the National Day of Prayer, and they do these demoralization tactics. It's a communist thing to destroy our history and to demoralize us. And I think because this is such a Catholic community, they really went out of their way to demoralize us by getting out of the invocations in the National Prayer. But you see them wearing their blue shirts, and they were all rah, rah, rah. Yeah. And they were it was basically like a little baseball team, like a little league baseball team. And I just feel like there was some funding going on there, because I don't think people are that passionate about atheism.
Okay. But let's talk about apathy. Right. So if this was important, whether they were paid or not paid, whatever the case is, right? They felt that you should remove prayer from the commission at the time. Yeah. Why didn't the conservative side come into play?
Yeah.
Okay, I was trying
Good
to
question. It's a
rally
very good question,
people
brother.
to help me with this, and I think I had like 2 or 3 individuals that showed up to support this.
I went there. I was sitting in the back. But I went.
So I'm like, so obviously this is not as important as you make it out to be.
Yeah.
And I hear this, and this one.
It's important to me. I mean,
Yeah, this one of the things you got me going with this is that it bothers me is because not you. I'm using an expression.
No, yeah.
You talk about they're taking prayer out of. Let me pick on prayer out of the commission. It shouldn't have been there. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But when you had to fight for it, advocate.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do? Well,
I went and I got involved.
And when I keep saying you, I'm not talking about you.
But yes.
But
What did they do? That's
But
right.
then,
That's
as I started, when we first started this, and I said, look at the left. What did the left do? They organized, they approached, they spoke, and guess what? They convinced the leaders that this is what the people wanted.
Yeah.
We could have done the same, but we chose not to. So what happens? We get nothing.
Well, and that goes back to the elections, Juan. And this is a good conversation. I've been wanting to have this conversation for a very long time, and I could only really have it with someone like you, someone who understands like all the nuances of what's going on with the community, and you've seen it firsthand. I mean, and I'll use Yvette Herrell as an example. I use her as an example big time because you got to understand when in Yvette Herrell in her heyday, she was the far right extremist, pro-America, build that damn wall, Second Amendment. I mean, just loved it. And when she was in office and when she was running, there was a different type of energy in the community here. I mean, there was so many people that were galvanized, that were volunteering, that were involved. Even the churches had a whole different vibe. I mean, that one person, that one office, 2nd Congressional District, was so important for the spirit and the ethos of this community. When they take these elections, and that's just one example, and they take forever to count the ballots like they did with her 2000 ones, it really hammered the morale of the community and the Republican Party. And then that's just one race. And then you go and do it, basically exponentiate that type of reaction with all the local elections and the state rep elections and all that, you start to get that apathy, and that starts to exponentiate. And so that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, that's why these elections are so important, man, because with these candidates, it's not just about the party, it's about the following that they bring, the message that they share.
Right.
And when you start stifling that with stolen elections, look, you end up with what you got. People don't even care about prayer. People they're so apathetic, man. So I understand that you want to put some blame on the people for not getting involved. I agree with that. I think it's cowardly. I'll say that right now. And God hates cowards. But at the same time, we are human beings. We are all faulted and fallen in a certain way. When you see so many things so corrupt and you get demoralized in so many different ways, I mean, it's just, they're very effective in demoralization tactics. And I think that these stolen elections are like the key demoralization tactic.
But Zeke, we have options. We're not living in a country where you can't walk out your front door, where you can't. We can use social media. We can speak. We can do billboards. We can get rallies. We have a ton of options.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, this is one area where I am 100%, well, 99%, is it's apathy, because people don't want to change, because either they blame it on the elections, or maybe elections are part of the problem. Maybe it's ignorant, whatever the case is. I don't buy it. Because if it's important enough for you that your kids go to school and they're not having the DEI and all this other good stuff, then get off your butt and do something.
Yeah.
Okay. I can tell you when we were pushing, I don't know if you remember, when we were pushing against realized Las Cruces. I mean, we had a ton of ours on our side advocating. Sarah did a great job on that.
Yeah, Sarah.
And guess what? The council came to a halt on this topic.
Yeah.
And then they paused it because there was so much pushback from we the people. And then they voted against it anyways. But the point I'm trying to make is, if we had that type of involvement in this state, in this community, the composition of the 3 major government centers would be different. It would be.
Yeah, and you drive a hard bargain there, and I couldn't agree more, because, and a prime example, modern day, right now today example is Project Jupiter stuff, these AI stuff. These data centers are getting hammered nationwide because of advocacy, because these people are just putting their foot down and they're saying no. They're actually getting rid of certain city councils. In El Paso, they're doing it right now because of the vote of that contract in Project Jupiter. Yeah. They're going to completely get rid of the city council, even though they're going to expose themselves for a lawsuit. They don't care. They don't want the data centers there. And if you look at it, guys, I wanted to believe in the data centers. I thought that they were going to be good at the first, but you look into it, it's like the projection of water usage that they were going to be using does not coincide with reality. It's almost like they did it anyway. It's the only way that they would work, these data centers with the water, is if they started killing masses of people. It just won't work. There's just not enough water.
Okay, so let's take Project Jupiter. Who is driving this thing to a halt?
The people.
The people.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is the same, the people that could have kept, and I'm just using this as an example, could have kept prayer, could have kept some of the policies out of the school board that are in there, in so many things. And it goes back to the same thing I spoke about at the very beginning. The left, who's pushing against Project Jupiter mainly? It's the left.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
So why can't we do the same? I'm not talking about Jupiter at this point in time. For any particular topic. Okay? Look at the homeless here in Las Cruces. Right? I don't have anything against homeless. But the thing about it is the city keeps getting worse and worse when it comes to the trash, the garbage, and so forth. But you know what? Where's the people going out there and actually advocating against this and pushing the council to pass for instance, the no camping ordinance? People complain, this and that, and and you see it on social media, but then it's like, well, let's get together and do something.
Well, the hard to swallow truth about the human nature and reality is that we really, the way we learn is that you just got to get freaking run into a wall super hard. I mean, it's like these issues that really matter the most is the only time you see people get galvanized, like, the water, people need water to freaking live, you know what I mean? So Project Jupiter became an issue. The abortion clinic, that's another thing where the advocacy was very successful because these children, and it's, we don't want to be known as the, abortion capital of the world. So we got people out there praying, calling.
But we need more.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it's only when it's like at the very, and this is just like a human story. This is a human nature thing. Only when things get super horribly bad, when the good guys come together and start working against it.
Well, yes.
That's what it seems like.
No, and I agree. But keep in mind, so right now for our part of the discussion, let's keep the left and the right. For right now.
Yeah.
And you see the left is pro-abortion. As Councilor Bencomo once said, we need a thriving abortion clinic here in Las Cruces. What the heck is a thriving abortion clinic, okay? Well, you have a thriving grocery store, it means they're selling a lot of groceries and people are buying them. What is a thriving abortion clinic? That you're killing a lot of babies or a lot of, whatever. Okay, but
my God.
But where is that outrage? Where is that passion that this side over here, the right side, is to help stop some of this?
Well, it's there.
It's there, but it's not enough.
It's not enough. It's enough to stop the building. They didn't break ground on it yet. But I guarantee when Deb Holland gets in there, she's probably going to get in there.
I think that changed. I think it is going to happen because I believe I heard that recently that they were trying to stop it. It has slowed down or whatever it is, but I think it's back on. I could be wrong on that. Okay. But we can do so much in this community, and this is what really ticks me off. We can do so much. And with CCIA, we had the educate, engage, and reform. Educate the community on what's going on or why things are happening, whatever, so that they could engage. And that word, engage, was very difficult to make happen.
It was, man. And it's just like, and I see it. I see the struggle. I've seen you guys online. I follow you guys. Me, Alice is the co-host here. We work together and she tells me, updates me. And I see it. I see the lack of motivation and the lack of communal engagement. And it's very sad. It's very sad because you guys are doing the right thing. You're trying to do the right thing and you guys have really good intentions. And then people just don't want to get involved. They don't want to get engaged.
It's juvenile crime, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Juvenile crime. The massacre we had at Young Park, thank God they had some good convictions.
Right. I was very impressed with that too.
It is. But I was just reading yesterday, a 17 or 18-year-old, whatever, they were going around breaking into marijuana shops, stealing cars. I mean, and I'm saying to myself, why can't we, this side, the right side, galvanize so that they push? We've got, I think it's 11 or 12, 13 senators, representatives in this county. That's a decent chunk.
Yeah.
Okay, I know they're mostly, they are all Democratic except for Representative Jones and Dow. But if we had enough concern and enough desire to do that, we could push for some type of crime reform.
Yeah, and I just think that for us to really start getting things going, I mean, because look, the Republican Party here in Doña Ana has been absolutely horrendous. I believe that they have been working against us for whatever reason, but they've gone out of their way to make sure that populist and grassroots movements get stifled. And you can get into debates on why or what, but that's what happened. Okay,
It is.
they've been in the way of people like you trying to do the right thing, people like me. I'm still a registered Republican, but I'll be honest with you guys, we've had a really big problem with the Republican Party, and
it's not getting better.
And Kim Skaggs was part of that problem. I'll be honest with you. I mean, yeah, I mean, God bless the guy that just passed away. You know, it's a horrible thing that happened, but that is somewhat of an instantiation of the type of chaos that she brought with her everywhere she was involved. I mean, I dealt with it firsthand.
And again, I'm a rich Republican, but that's why I don't have any part of it. You know, I put a slide together in one of my presentations. I still have it, where if you look at the left and then the right, you have advocacy, right? I mean, a ton of actions, 360, 365. You have Cafe, you got Progress New Mexico, you got half a dozen, whatever.
Ton of them, yeah.
And they all feed into what? Into the Democratic Party.
That's right.
Right? I went to this PVA meeting a few months ago, and I was super impressed. You had maybe a dozen groups. I don't know, I didn't really count them, but they were all working together.
Yeah.
We tried, and this is one of my sore spots with the party, now that you got me going on
No,
this,
let's talk about it. I think it's time we talk about it.
It's because I made every attempt to get our party leaders to work with us.
That's right.
But they would not talk to us because we were nonpartisan. I'm like, really? Okay, that was the big hang up, is that, when we were pushing to try to get candidates, to identify candidates, well, I got some flack back. Well, it's not your job, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're not doing it, okay? When I say you, I'm not doing it.
No, I got you. No.
So, but I found it extremely disappointing that the party would not work with us because we dared to be nonpartisan. And to me, that's whatever.
Well, you talk about rhinos, Republicans in name only, for those who don't know. And it's like, why? The whole point of being a Republican and advocate of the Republican Party is to extend olive branches to those who want to potentially join the party, to take them out of being independent, take them out of being the Democrat Party, and to bring them to your side. You should be convincing them, opening your arms to them and say, yes, you do have a home here if you would like to come here. With the way she treated you guys, and I say sure her because she was a big part of that. She did it to me too.
And the current chair too.
And the current chair as well. Why wouldn't they want to have that ethos of, let's try to work together. Let's bring our common ground together and put it under the Republican Party. But that's what President Trump did. That's why he was able to win. You think he won because only Republicans voted for him? No. He got a ton of Democrats and a ton of independents to come out and vote for him.
Exactly. And the way you presented it, the way you just laid it out, that's not that complicated.
No, bro.
Okay? No. I mean, and anyway, that to me was one of the most disappointing, frustrating aspects of my relation. And that's why at this point in time, it's been a couple of years, I have nothing to do with the party.
Yeah. And I remember we had this discussion because me and you were, we've always been, pretty close philosophically. Whenever we do hang out, we have really deep conversations about things because we're just at that level. And you kind of splintered off and did more CCIA. And I was like, I'm going to go all in with the party. And you're like, good luck, bro. Good luck. I remember that. And I was like, let's see what I can do. And it ended up being the same exact thing that you dealt with. Because this is at the time I was a second vice chair a year ago. And at that time we had really started to harp on the idea that the NRA and the churches were the ones that weren't voting, or no, not the NRA. Yeah, the NRA and the churches. It's like only 30% of them vote or less or something like that. So we really had this mentality, like if we can get into with the churches and get them to register Republican, get them to vote, we can flip this state just on that principle alone. So as second vice chair, the people, the CCC, the County and Central Commission, they had wanted me to utilize social media to get involved with the churches, to get them to register Republican, to get them to vote. Very intuitive, right? I mean, so what does Kim Skaggs do is just completely stifles the whole thing, gets in the way of it, kicks me off social media, and her behavior was atrocious. I reported it to the ethics committee. They did nothing about it. And I was like, you know what? I'm stepping down, because in any other real institution, any real organization with that type of behavior, that person would be fired. And they didn't want to do anything about it. So this is not an organization I want to be a part of, and that's what I did. And that's what happened to me. is basic stuff, common sense stuff that you would think should be encouraged to bring people together in the community were being stifled with what I was doing alone. And I saw her do it with you. It's like,
Well,
dude, I don't wanna
and
do
I
this.
think you said it very well when you just said earlier about bringing people. Maybe you're a Democrat, you're a blue dog, whatever the case may be, and if you get people together, focused on a particular, especially stuff that affects you, personally or locally or whatever the case is, you could potentially turn some of those people into Republicans. We didn't go out there and say we need you to become a Republican. We didn't talk about that.
No, yeah, no.
But that could potentially come as an after effect of this type of environment.
That's right.
So why the party would never support us in any of this? And you know what? We weren't asking for an endorsement. We weren't asking for any of that. All we were asking for just a little bit of time so that we could have, be able to present what we were doing. I don't know if it was personal jealousy, whether it was, this is my little rice bowl.
That's what it seemed like, kind of, yeah.
And you know what? Finally, I got to the point that I said, you know what? I don't need this. I don't need it. And even though we don't support individual candidates, we open up the door for them to come and speak. We've had Democratic candidates.
I think it's fine.
I mean, they came in and spoke because, you know what? There were some Democrats that were, fairly conservative.
Yeah.
Right? That was our focus, conservative, right?
That's right.
And it worked out well. But the party, I'm just like, at this point in time, I don't know if I'm still a member of anything because I don't get any more emails. Quite frankly, I don't really care.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point in time, I'm going to continue to do what we're doing, and hopefully that will help the community.
Well, and I'll say this: there are some good great people in the Republican Party.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And I've opened my mind a lot on the whole like Republican Party, registered Republican kind of thing, because I talk to people like State Representative Jones, Senator Crystal Brantley, and they'll straight tell you like, Zeke, you got to get out of the mentality of just trying to register all these Democrats. They're not going to switch, bro. They're not going to switch. Just talk to them, give them common sense values. They'll vote for you. They'll vote for Republican. And they're prime examples of that because they're in blue areas as well. Right. And same thing with Senator Ramos and Senator Terrazas. The Democrats come out and vote for Republicans because, at a certain level, they're not going to switch parties. These people have been Democrats their whole freaking life.
Right.
But they understand their common sense. They're going to vote for the person, not the party. And so I still like to register Republicans if I can. I've registered some people. But I'm in the mentality, it's like, look, if we can get people together on common sense values and we can just at least get them to vote with us, and that's cool. I'm cool with that, man. Yeah.
It's not that difficult. The approach, the philosophy, the idea on how to do this is not that difficult. It's just a matter of making it happen. One thing we never spoke of, at least I didn't, when we had people come into CCIA, we never asked, what is your party affiliation?
No.
Never.
Right.
I mean, maybe within themselves, they might have talked about it. I didn't want to know. I didn't particularly care. You came to join us. You wanted to get involved in the community, blah, 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 whatever the case is. To me, that's what's important. How you vote is between you and your maker, okay? You guys decide that at the ballot booth. But you have to have that because you are not in a red county. If this was a red county, we wouldn't be having this discussion because everybody would just vote Republican.
Well, there's a reason why every city in the country is pretty much blue, and all the district attorneys are, provably sponsored, influenced by George Soros. So these DAs are the ones that are letting these criminals out, and this, the cycle. And I want to kind of end on this last topic here because, on a positive note, I like to see how things manifested in other places. Like Florida used to be hard blue. Right. And they dealt with that really bad election with the Bush and all that, and who else was he running against? I don't know. But either way, they're hard red now. It took some time, but they're hard red. Same thing with, look at El Salvador. That was a hard blue country. It really corrupt. MS-13 gang members, the worst of the worst. And now it's the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. Right. And a lot of that was with crime. He was on the news recently, like telling President Trump, you just got to put a lot of people in jail, bro. You got to put them in jail. That's the way you keep safety in the area. So on a positive note, all this oppression that we experience here in New Mexico, I think is going to eventually explode into the opposite of that. I think this is going to be eventually one of the most conservative states in the country.
I hope it's in my lifetime, Zeke.
It might not be, brother.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm one of the most optimistic persons you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be in my lifetime. I hope so. But,
maybe. You never know. Things are changing fast these days, And we got Deb Hall in that. It's got a pretty good chance of winning. God bless Greg Hall. I like the guy.
I tell you what, Holland is. Geez, I've been following her since 19, I think it was, when she slandered the Covington boys back in the.
Oh wow!
I've been following her.
God, I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, and she never apologized. And I saw her. As a matter of fact, she was here at one of the organizations. Good God, man. Heaven help us. I know you're gonna smack me for this, but if I had a choice, I mean, if somebody had a gun to my head, I'd pick MLG.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Over Holland.
And MLG at the end of the day wasn't horrific. I think her main problem was the lockdowns, right? And then she went pretty heavy on the abortion stuff, which I totally disagree with. And she could have went heavier. She didn't go as heavy as California did with the transgender stuff.
And I want to caveat: if there was a gun to my head, okay, I'm not. But Holland is to me is terrible, yeah. And one other thing I want to touch on real quick, since you're talking about elections.
Yeah.
And this really ticks me off. Stephanie Garcia Richards, I think that's her name. Mm-hmm. She's the one that was anointed by Holland for lieutenant governor. 42,000 votes by Senator Pope, right? I don't even know the guy, but he got the votes. Holland says, no, I want Stephanie because she's a woman.
For whatever
reasons, right?
Yeah.
And the Democrats, the hypocrisy, they talk about Trump is trying to disenfranchise voters because they're expected to show their citizenship, which is, pretty basic.
That's basic.
But yet here in New Mexico, Ms. Holland says, you know what, 42K votes that Pope got, we're going to count them. I don't agree with them. I'm going to pick who I want as my candidate. Who is the queen? Who is the king?
Yeah.
Anyways.
No, it's true. And
you
then
can get me going on this.
Well, and we're coming up on time here. The last point real quick, as quick as I can make it, really. I mean, it's just, and I like to harp on the Democrats right now, although I am getting a lot closer to conservative Democrats. I'll be honest with you. I've been hanging out with them. I've got the Conservatives in New Mexico Facebook group. Juan does a great job reaching out to Democrats as well with CCIA. Let's look at somewhere like Gabe Vasquez, okay? And let's look at a guy who's running against him, Greg Cunningham. Gabe Vasquez hasn't really achieved much with his life, and not to take it too much away from him, but I mean, like, look,
it's
bro,
a fact.
It's like, bro, he hadn't really done much. He's not the most educated guy. He's not a veteran. Doesn't have a family. Doesn't have any kids, and he really wasn't even raised here. I mean, he's from immigrant, right? Didn't he come over? He was born in, I think, in El Paso as an anchor baby, and he just always, and I say this because he's always throwing America under the bus. You know what I mean? He's not a proud American. And then you got a guy like Greg Cunningham, another Marine, businessman, family man, a
police officer,
astute American, well achieved, highly accomplished, great guy, and the fact that they're even in the same room together, vying for the same position, it just really, how can you, as a Democrat, just allow these people like Deb Haaland, really hadn't achieved much before she got into politics. And,
she hadn't. If he had not been for her color, for her gender.
Totally exploited it.
And you know what? She has a Norwegian dad.
I heard about that recently.
And he was in the Marine Corps.
No way.
Okay, yes, he was. Okay. So all this thing about, how she was so poor. No. Do some research.
I didn't know that.
Her. She lived in military housing, but she never talks about her dad because it doesn't do her any good on politically speaking. She speaks about her mom, who happened to be Native American, whatever, right? But when she portrays herself as a victim and blah, blah, blah.
And she's not even from New Mexico, right? Isn't she from Arizona? I think she's from an Arizona reservation. She's not even from
I seen pictures of her dad. Her dad was as white as that light right there.
Jeez, her mom must have been super native then, because she looks native as hell.
But she will not talk. When was the last time you heard her talk about her dad?
I just heard about the whole Norwegian thing like a week or so ago.
That's true. I did the research on that a few years back. And again, you know what? Good for her. But this is that political hypocrisy, and that's why I can't stand her. That's part of the reason why I can't stand her is because she is milking her color, she's milking her ethnicity to score political points because she's incompetent.
Yeah, incompetent. And it's just so antithetical to the American way of life and to just evolutionary psychology. It's like wisdom cannot really be acquired without experience. That's like a kind of a Platonic thing, It's like you need experience to have wisdom, right? And then these Democrats are voting in these people who don't really have any experience. Like I was talking about earlier in the show, it's like the veterans were so endeared because they brought their experience from other wars and helped America with it, right? You brought your veteran experience and you're helping with our community. It's a very natural thing that we've all come to cherish. But you get these Democrats in there who have no experience, they're incompetent, and they're just like rah for them. It's like, man, you guys are under some kind of mass formation psychosis. I don't know, but people are very self-destructive. To me, it's a very self-destructive mentality. And we, at the end of the day, it's gotta be too big to rig, bro. I think that's the mentality we gotta have. That's the mentality we can have to get people galvanized to show up to your events, to all of our events, to get them in the streets. It's not necessarily protesting, but advocating for the right things. It's like too big to rig means everybody's got to get involved. Even though you know it's corrupt, even though you know there's some issues, you've got to make
get engaged.
Got to get engaged.
That's it.
So that's it, man. It's a wonderful conversation with you, Juan.
Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you for being here, man, and everything that you're doing for the community. Hope we have you on again soon. Thank you guys for tuning in. We just did a little over an hour, and I always end on a prayer, so I'll make a quick little prayer. Lord Jesus, thank you so much for bringing us together here and giving us the opportunity to share our message of Juan Garcia and our message here of conservatism here in Doñana with the rest of the state and all that are listening. We just thank you for all your blessings, and I just pray that you're with us and you guide us through the coming chaotic months that are going to be the 2026 election. Lord, again, thank you for all your blessings. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you guys. Catch you guys later.